Welcome back to Celebrity Estate Chaos. If you've ever thought, hey, rich people must have their financial lives together, today's episode is going to blow your mind. We're talking about Whitney Houston, a woman who had a voice that could shatter glass, a career that defined a generation, and an estate that was an absolute dumpster fire.
Estate planning disasters happen to regular folks all the time. But when Whitney Houston, one of the best-selling artists in history with over 200 million records sold, left behind a chaotic legal mess, it proved that even superstars aren't immune to poor financial planning.
That's such a fascinating point because Whitney's estate situation turned into something that would make even a seasoned probate lawyer's head spin. We're talking about a $20 million fortune that sparked years of family feuds and courtroom drama.
And you know what inspired this deep dive? Tina Ginn's book, Dead Funny, The Estate Planning Guide for the Living. This book breaks down so many celebrity estate disasters and teaches you how to avoid making the same awful mistakes, even if you don't have millions in the bank. And trust us, if Whitney Houston's estate can turn into a legal circus, so can yours.
So buckle up, folks. This one is messier than a reality TV reunion special.
You know what's really wild about this whole thing? Whitney came from musical royalty. Her mother was gospel singer Cissy Houston, her cousin was Dionne Warwick, and Aretha Franklin was basically her aunt. With that kind of pedigree, you'd think financial planning would have been part of the family conversation.
But I guess when you're busy becoming one of the biggest stars on the planet, estate planning isn't exactly top of mind. I mean, by 1985, she was literally rewriting the record books.
Speaking of records, let's break down just how massive her success was. 7 consecutive #1 hits from her debut album alone. That's something not even the Beatles managed to pull off. And I Will Always Love You, that became the best-selling single by a female artist in music history.
Oh my gosh. And let's not forget how she transformed that Dolly Parton song into something completely different. But here's where things start getting really interesting. While she was collecting Grammy Awards, she made this one decision in 1990 that would later cause huge problems.
Right. She helped her father, John Houston, and his wife, Barbara, get a house in New Jersey. Seems simple enough, right? But instead of putting it in their names, she held the mortgage herself. And that one choice sparked what I like to call the Great Houston House Battle.
Well, that's putting it mildly. After John passed away in 2003, Barbara basically said, "Thanks for the house," and refused to leave. I mean, imagine having to sue your own stepmother.
And that's exactly what happened. Whitney tried to evict Barbara. Barbara sued Whitney. And this legal battle dragged on for years. You know what makes it even more complicated? When Whitney passed away in 2012, her mother, Cissy, took over the estate and immediately moved to kick Barbara out.
The courts finally sided with Whitney's estate, but that was just the beginning of the drama, because then we get to the really heartbreaking part about Bobbi Kristina's inheritance.
This is where things get truly tragic. Whitney left her entire $20 million estate to her only daughter, Bobbi Kristina. But here's the catch. It was structured so she'd receive it in portions at ages 21, 25, and 30.
You know, that's actually a pretty standard practice in estate planning. It's called an age-structured trust, and it's designed to prevent young heirs from burning through their inheritance too quickly. Tina Ginn's book, Dead Funny, breaks down so many celebrity estate disasters and teaches you how to avoid making the same awful mistakes, even if you don't have millions in the bank. And trust us, if Whitney Houston's estate can turn into a legal circus, so can yours.
Exactly right. But then in 2015, at just 22 years old, Bobbi Kristina was found unresponsive in a bathtub, in an eerie parallel to her mother's death. She never made it to those later distributions, passing away at such a young age.
And that's when the real feeding frenzy began. Bobbi Brown, Whitney's family, lawyers, creditors, suddenly everyone had a claim to that fortune. It was like watching vultures circle.
Here's something most people don't realize. Whitney's estate is still generating significant income today through music royalties, licensing deals, and her back catalog. In 2020 alone, her estate earned over $9.5 million from streaming revenue.
So what happens to all that money now? Because this isn't just about what Whitney left behind. It's about ongoing revenue that keeps flowing in.
Well, that's where things get even more complicated. The estate is now managed by Pat Houston, Whitney's former manager and sister-in-law, who's been working to protect and grow Whitney's legacy. They've even approved a hologram tour and biopic to generate more revenue.
But here's what really gets me. All of this drama could have been prevented with proper estate planning. I mean, we're talking about basic stuff like clear property titles and updated beneficiary designations.
Let me share some statistics that'll blow your mind. According to recent surveys, 67% of Americans don't have any kind of estate plan. And among those who do, 77% haven't updated their plans in the last 5 years.
That's absolutely shocking considering how much our lives can change in just a few years. Marriages, divorces, births, deaths, property purchases.
And here's another fascinating detail. Whitney's estate faced over $11 million in tax liens from the IRS at the time of her death. That's because estate taxes can claim up to 40% of assets if you haven't planned properly.
So, what are the key lessons we can learn from Whitney's situation? Because clearly, this isn't just about having money, it's about managing it wisely.
First, everyone needs an estate plan, not just the wealthy. Second, that plan needs to be updated regularly. And third, you need to be crystal clear about property ownership and beneficiary designations.
And don't forget about digital assets. Whitney's career spanned the transition from physical albums to streaming. Today, people need plans for everything from cryptocurrency to social media accounts.
You know what's really interesting? Some of Whitney's unreleased recordings are still in legal limbo because nobody knows who has the rights to them. That's millions in potential revenue just sitting there.
Well, that just shows how complex modern estates can be. It's not just about physical assets anymore. It's about intellectual property, digital rights, future earnings potential.
Looking toward the future, Whitney's estate continues to face challenges. They're currently working on a Broadway musical and other projects, but who benefits from these ventures remains complicated by all the previous legal battles.
So the legacy of one of music's greatest voices is still entangled in legal red tape, nearly a decade after her passing. That's perhaps the saddest part of this whole story.
Before we wrap up, let's remember that Whitney Houston's story isn't just about estate planning gone wrong. It's about how important it is to protect your legacy, whatever that legacy might be. Whether you're a global superstar or just someone who wants to take care of their family, proper planning matters.
That's such a powerful way to look at it, because in the end, it's not about the money. It's about taking care of the people you love and preserving what you've worked so hard to build.
Listen, estate planning isn't just for celebrities who forgot to sign a will while accepting their Grammy. It's for you, me, and literally anyone who doesn't want their family brawling over their toaster when they're gone. Do yourself and your relatives a favor. Grab a copy of Dead Funny by Tina Ginn, laugh while you learn, and make sure your legacy isn't an episode of Judge Judy.
And on that note, we'll leave you with one final thought. Don't wait to get your affairs in order. Because if Whitney Houston's story teaches us anything, it's that none of us know what tomorrow might bring.
Thanks for listening to Celebrity Estate Chaos. If you don't have a will, a trust, or at least a plan, go fix that ASAP. Because you do not want to be the reason your family's on court TV